Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you who came out to support the Parent University today. We are going to be jumping right in. We're going to be talking about marijuana, and I'm just going to give you some updates about what's going on in New York State. So let's begin. So I want to start out with having a little honest talk. So I have some questions on here. You guys can feel free to jump in and answer them. If you want to answer one or do a combination, that is perfectly okay. Okay. So you see here it says, "Tell me what you think is true about marijuana. What comes to mind when you think about marijuana? How safe or harmful is it in your opinion? How did you learn what you know about marijuana? And lastly, how do you know if the information is accurate or credible?" So you can just jump right in real quick, with throw a couple of comments out, and then we'll jump right in. It's just so I can get a feel of the knowledge. Okay?
It's legal now.
Okay, it's legal. You back?
Safe.
Okay. Up front?
It's easy to get.
Okay. Awesome. So we're off to a great start. Okay. So we're gonna elaborate more on this, and we're gonna see where it takes us. Okay. So just so we're clear about where we stand in New York State. So back in '73, we had the mandatory minimum sentencing for cannabis. Fast forward to 2014, we have the decriminalization and reduced penalties for the possession and the legalization of medical cannabis. Okay. Now in 2016, we have medical programs being implemented, and then in 2021, we ended up getting Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, which legalized recreational use. Yay! Sarcasm, sorry. Okay, I'm back. And then we also have modifications to the medical cannabis programs, okay? And lastly, at the end of 2022, recreational dispensaries started opening, and we're starting to see what that impact is having, okay? This is just a map of the U.S. where you can see where each state is based on their marijuana laws. So as you can see, New York State is in the green, and what that means is that adult use and medical use has been approved in our state. However, I do want to put this plug in. The same laws that we have in New York do not necessarily apply to other states, so if someone is carrying across state lines while traveling, they can end up having negative consequences as a result of it. And then, of course, you have from country to country. I'm sure everyone knows about Brittany Griner and the whole situation with Russia. So just because it is a norm here in New York State does not mean it's the norm in another state nor the norm in another country. It can come with legal ramifications. So this is just a slide. It's really hard to see, but basically this slide is communicating that marijuana is still a Schedule I drug on the federal level. However, the reason why marijuana has that Schedule I title is because it is considered to be highly addictive. This ends up being a problem because, all right, you got people that are addicted, but now we have laws that are kind of saying, well, we're legalizing it anyway, so what's the big deal? So now there's like this issue with the federal level because it's still illegal, and the state level where where it is legal. So if the federals want to come in at any point in time and shut down the programs, technically they could, although it is unlikely. So, what is marijuana? Google defines it for us as cannabis, especially as a smoked or consumed as a psychoactive, mind-altering drug. We have to pay attention to the fact that it is a mind-altering drug, although many people may say it is not. So, how does it work in the human body? We have this system called the endocannabinoid system. And basically, we have these different receptors all over the body. This picture displays it for us. So we have CD1 and CD2 receptors in our body, and then in the brain we have, then we have receptor sites where you have both throughout the body, which are modified in black. So basically, when a person is using marijuana THC or CBD or any of the other cannabinoids will attach to these sites, and it will have an impact on the body. There are two different types of cannabinoids. We have synthetic cannabinoids, which are found in laboratories and are part of products like K2 and Spice. And then you have natural cannabinoids, which are grown in the marijuana plant, okay? I want to spend a little time here on the synthetic cannabinoids. I pulled this information directly off of the National Institute of Drug Abuse. So synthetic cannabinoids are human-made, mind-altering chemicals that are either sprayed or dried, and they can also be used in e-cigarettes and vape pens, okay? These things can be really unstable when you're actually taking it, and can have negative side effects on the body. We heard of a lot of people using K2 in the city especially, and some of them unfortunately died, okay? So these products are marketed as herbals or liquid incense. This is important because technically, according to them, they're not selling you marijuana. It's a way to get around it with marketing, okay? So research do know that some synthetic cannabinoids bind more strongly to the cell receptors affected by THC. So basically, this lab synthetic made marijuana is stronger when it comes down to how it acts on the body, excuse me, okay? And the resulting health effects can be unpredictable and dangerous. You just never know where you're gonna fall when you're using it, okay? There are many, many, many different cannabinoids in marijuana, over 100. The two most well-known are THC and CBD. THC will be the one that is this, that alters your mindset. CBD is more of the therapeutic approaches that you see being used today. So we have different strains here. I'm getting into the different types of strains of marijuana because if you know someone who's using it, based on what the behaviors they're displaying, you may be able to figure out the types of strains that they are using. So we have indica, which is known for a body high. It relaxes you, okay? So it makes you sleepy, it's a sleep aid. You can have a heavier high and it reduces anxiety. So if you have someone who is really, really bound up with anxiety, most likely they're gonna go to this strain so that they can calm down. And when they report out, they're going to say, well, it relaxes me, so I don't see a problem with it, okay? Sativa, this is gonna be more of have the opposite effect. You're gonna, if I had to put this in words, I would say indica would be more like a depressant, sativa would be more of a stimulant vibe, okay? Because this is the one that gives you more energy, allows you for creativity, you can have hallucinations, and it can cause increased focus. Now, you can also have hybrid models, which are a combination of the indica and the sativa. And the bottom line is that the person making the marijuana can determine which one has more, and it's specific to that grower, okay? So you may see someone who has 50% indica, 50% sativa, 25% indica, 75% sativa. So it can go any way they want, okay? So my question is weed getting stronger? What's your take? Definitely? You absolutely would be right, because today marijuana can be as high as 99% THC when it comes down to the concentrates, okay? So back in the 60s, a regular plant was like 3%, but then over time, because we are really good at the growing process with crossbreeding and everything and cultivating it, we can get the THC up higher to probably around 25-30%. But then when we extract that 25-30% using certain methods, that's when we can have it achieve up to 99%. Don't ask me how to do the math or the chemistry. I barely got out of chemistry. Okay. So what is the impact of marijuana on the human growth and development? So in order to go over this, we're gonna actually start in the womb. Why the womb? I know, we're talking about teenagers, right? Well, the bottom line is that our teens, they can make really poor decisions when they're under the influence, which can result in unplanned pregnancy. So that's why I wanted to pause and give this some time, because if a person keeps using marijuana, it can impact the growth and development of the child, okay? So, I'll just throw it in here. So when it comes down to marijuana, if a mother is using it, the actual intensity of the marijuana is stronger on the developing child because they're smaller in weight and size. Whereas the mother will probably feel like the average effects of it, the child will feel it more strongly, okay? This can be traumatic for the developing child and result in things such as fetal growth restriction, which basically the child's not gaining weight properly in the belly. There's a higher risk of stillbirth, premature birth, which is a birth before 37 weeks, and then low birth weight. This can also be a challenge for the developing mind of that child because long-term brain development issues affecting memory, learning, and behavior can be shown as well, okay? So if a child is starting out with these issues, it can end up becoming more profound later on as they grow up, okay? So this is the former Surgeon General comment. He said, I am emphasizing the importance of protecting our nation from the health risks of marijuana use in adolescents and during pregnancy. Recent increases in access to marijuana and in its potency, along with misperceptions of safety of marijuana, endangers our most precious resource, our nation's youth. I cannot stress it enough. It is the misperceptions that are going to end up causing problems because we have high access now that is legal in New York, although it's not legal for 21 and over. But if you have a child who is viewing marijuana as not as risky, they're going to be more inclined to try it. Okay? Yes.
I do want to pitch in at this point because I spoke to someone yesterday and I found this very interesting in Orangetown that if you had a 16-year-old and one had a joint, and let's say one had an alcohol beverage,
Mm-hmm.
Yep, alcohol is
the
gonna
one
get in
who
trouble.
has the alcohol beverage would get in more trouble than
The one
the
with
one.
marijuana.
And to me, I found that, yes, alcohol is very disturbing. They're both very disturbing, and they have huge, consequences on them in many aspects of their life. But I was just so surprised that now it's like that,
Yes.
It's the way the law was written.
and it's stronger. Like you would think because the weed would get stronger that now alcohol is. It's just very. That's why I'm here today because it's all very confusing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and believe it or not, a lot of our police officers are very frustrated with this as well because they can clearly tell that a person is under the influence, and they can't do anything about it because they're not showing any like signs or of use. There's no actual blunts that's laying there that they can arrest a person for or whatever. But then when it comes down to alcohol, there's a standard that's already established that they can use and enforce because it's scientifically backed. Marijuana's too new, so none of those things are in place right now. So we're actually behind the game, and where we should have, and I'm gonna hit Clone a little bit on the wrist, right? We should have had these things in place before we legalized, so that now we're not trying to go back and undo it.
Yeah.
Right? So thank you for your point. That is very important to highlight. Oh yes. So real quick, the Surgeon General at the time also said no amount of marijuana use during pregnancy or adolescence is known to be safe. So I like the way he rephrased this. It's not known to be safe because he's shining a light on the fact that we're actually need to pay attention and just change the way we're taking in information here. So the last thing I want to say is why are pregnant women using this? The main thing is morning sickness. People were going around saying, hey, by the way, if you're dealing with morning sickness, you can smoke a little marijuana to help it. And they connected that to cancer treatment. Why? When a person's going through chemo, they're smoking marijuana, one, to help them eat, right? And two, to help with the nausea. But when you're dealing with a developing child, we can't do that, okay? So now we're gonna get into the health effects of marijuana. And the health effects are based on how it's being used, okay? So we have the vaping THC oils, right? But they're also available in liquids, so they're coming out in cans in our local convenience stores now with CBD and THC infused, right? We also see them available in edibles. We're gonna get more into that soon. They're available in oils, and of course you have the regular flower and the joint. But the main thing is this. We're gonna divide this into inhaling and ingestion. Because if we look at how it goes into the body, we can see how it's going to impact the body. So for ingestion, and I put all this stuff on here because if you need to focus on one thing that you need to take away, you can zero in on it because it's on the slide and you don't have to remember. Okay, so with ingestion, a person's going to eat and the edible is going to hit the stomach, but believe it or not, when it actually gets metabolized and broken down through the liver, the THC becomes stronger. So for a person who's say using a 25% THC, by the time it gets to the liver and the liver does its job, it can go up to 30, 35, 40%, okay? Another thing to point out is that the effects will be felt about 30 minutes to 2 hours later. So the full peak will be in within 4 hours, but the effects can last up to 12 hours, okay? So why am I really focusing on this right now? Around this time with high school, what are one of the goals that kids have for themselves? What do they want to do? What privilege do they want? Huh?
Fit in.
Fit in, yes, but there's another privilege that they're looking to get access to that requires a test, and you have to driving, right? So if a person's using edibles and they feel like they're past their 4-hour mark, everything's peaked, they're not gonna have any worries with their ability to function and handle the vehicle, that could actually be wrong, because you should be waiting at least 12 hours before operating a vehicle from the time you start feeling the effects. Okay?
Which is also another reason why we put our kids in danger when they think it's funny and bring an edible to school and give it to a friend.
Yep.
Wait, so you're saying that edibles hit you harder than if they were
So-
smoking some?
For edible,
Flower,
in
weed.
terms of edibles, they come with the most risk. One, because that is the leading cause in our county for why kids are landing in the emergency room. Because our edibles look like this, and I'm gonna connect it back in a second. So, users want the immediate gratification. In high school, that's all they're about, right? Because they're like, all right, what's gonna give me the thrill? It can lead to overconsumption. Why? Because they're sweet and they're tasty, okay? And then, of course, there's a lack of understanding about portions. So, say, for example, if this was a cookie, you're not supposed to eat the entire cookie. You're only supposed to have like a very small section of it so that you can start to feel the effects. Otherwise, you can end up having too much in your system, landing you in the hospital. And this is why it can be a problem, because they look like the regular candies that we eat. And then they look like sodas on our shelves. They're easily accessible in our stores on the shelving if people aren't paying attention. They look like our Oreos. They look like our Kit Kats, okay? They're even coming in the cereals that we like to eat, well, that our youth like to eat, okay? I'm not gonna lie, I love green tea Kit Kats. I would have eaten that by accident if I did not see it and I didn't know to look for it to protect myself, okay? So, this is why we want to make sure that we are paying attention to what's available in our local community and go and pay attention and do scans. So this presentation is here to open up your eyes, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay? So as you can see here, you have cartoon characters along the side, and then of course they're mobile now. People can deliver it to you, or you can buy it online. There's discreet packaging, right? And then, of course, they're out in our communities at our local Walmart centers. I know there's one by me where they've set up a shop. You can go right up to them, purchase it right there in the parking lot. So this is the type of society that we're living in right now. And, hold on. There's one other point I wanted to connect back to, sorry. The 12 hours, so that's what it was. So when a person eats the edible, they're gonna feel the effects. At the point when they start feeling the effects, you wanna have them wait 12 hours before operating the vehicle so that they're not gonna end up with a DUI situation. That's what I was trying to say, okay? Did I answer your other comment, slash question, before I move on?
So if a kid did get pulled over and they were under the influence, how can they prove it if they have nothing on them?
So they would actually have to call dispatch and get a drug recognition officer to the scene in order, it's called a DRE, and they would have to do an assessment.
So there's no like breathalyzer like alcohol?
There's no breathalyzer for that.
So by the time you call this one and that one,
Only the police officer would be able to speak to that and go into.
And still there's, is limited because of the law, the way it's put in place, the police really don't have legal binding to arrest them unless it falls within the category of them breaking the law. they can carry up to 3 ounces and not be penalized.
But remember, if they're under the age of 21, they're still not supposed to have it.
Right.
And
Under
it should be
21.
taken from them. But if you're over the age of 21, then you have to. I know.
But they have a set of guidelines for like the alcohol. That's why a person that gets stopped with alcohol gets arrested or gets a DUI, and the one that gets stopped from alcohol doesn't. There's still no standardization.
So until we get there, we gotta wait. Okay? I know, hurry up and wait. I used to hate when my dad would say that to me. Oh, okay. So have any of you ever heard of purple drink or lean? Okay. So the reason why I put this up here is because
I just heard about it yesterday.
oh, okay. So yes, this was a trend. It's been a trend for a while. I think it's starting to slow down. But basically, people were mixing coatings, cough syrup with Sprite and Jolly Ranchers to help with the flavoring and everything, in order to get a buzz while drinking. And of course, alcohol's in there too. Now, I'm connecting this because we see that there's a weed lean that is out as well. So they substituted the codeine and they're adding THC. So why am I saying this? People always get in the flux when you hear, oh, so you're saying it's a gateway drug? So I'm not gonna say it's a gateway drug. What I will say is this: behaviors are transferable. If you develop a behavior with THC mixed in with your Pepsi, your Sprite or whatever, and your Jolly Rancher, that behavior is transferable into the codeine behavior where you're drinking scissor. So if you are practicing these behaviors, it makes it easier for you to transition into the other more complicated behavior that can have negative side effects. Alright? So now we're moving into inhalation. So with the inhalation, you're gonna have a person using a smoke device or a vaping device, okay, where they're inhaling deeply into the lungs. Now here's the other thing. When you inhale deep, you're doing more maximum damage because you're also holding it when you're using marijuana, okay? It goes into the bloodstream and then a person starts to feel the effects within a few minutes, okay? So this is a quicker way to get it into the body, and here we go. Effects can last up to 6 hours. So a person should not be operating a vehicle before 6 hours. So what am I saying? Have the conversation with your youth. God forbid if they are using this behavior, doing this behavior, and just stress prevention points such as, all right, if you're gonna use, you need to stay home for the rest of the night. You can't go out, you can't have your keys, you need to stay in. Now, I'm not saying that I support this behavior. Take a very clear stance, okay? But we want to make sure that they don't end up compromising their bad decisions with more bad decisions, okay? Secondhand smoke. Marijuana has the same chemicals that are found in our cigarettes, which means they're cancer-causing chemicals, okay? You can also have first-hand smoke, which is person smoking, second-hand smoke, which is the people in this room would be impacted from my smoking, and then third-hand smoke, which is after the air clears, there's still those chemical deposits in the air as well, okay? This is the brain. These yellow dots here are where THC impacts the brain, okay? So if you see here, this is the prefrontal cortex, which is still developing until around age 25. Because THC is so prevalent in that area, it's going to end up impacting the way the brain develops, especially if a person's using over and over and over again, and they're developing those addictive behaviors. So, I can't stress it enough. Delay, delay, delay. That's the kind of message that you want to keep sending to your children so that we can give their brain time to develop. Most kids start using before age 18. If we can delay it as long as possible, our child is doing a service to their brain so that their brain can develop in a more healthy way. So this is what marijuana does to the different areas of the brain. One includes panic and paranoia, slow reaction time. So having slow reaction time is not just behind the wheel. It can be walking simply, right? Those regular everyday functions that we do can be compromised and it can end up causing a person to get seriously injured. We have this anesthesia effect, impaired coordination, impaired memory. Now, going back to the in the womb part, impaired memory. I don't know if anyone has ever seen a person who is older in life with memory issues. It's really traumatic to see people like lose themselves. It would break my heart to see a person who is using this chemical over and over again develop things like Alzheimer's sooner rather than later because of the impaired memory functions. So I'm not saying that that's proven, but when you start seeing these commonalities, we have to focus on it and see what could possibly happen. So only in a few years will we know, with the research, what's actually going to happen with the human mind. Okay? So increased appetite, of course, gotta get the munchies, right? Altered thinking, judgment, and sensation. Listen, our kids are young. They do stupid stuff all the time. I was talking to some kids the other day. I said, what are some stupid things you've done? Kids said, I jump out of windows. I'm not talking first floor windows. He just jumps out of windows. That's what one said to me. And then I said, you know, when I was young, I did stupid stuff too. I used to eat Vaseline. Why? I don't know. I know, mad random, right? I see you laughing in the back. So all this to say is that when we're that young, we already make silly choices. Now you're adding in a substance that will only amplify what silly choice you make, okay? And sometimes those choices can be deadly, okay? Then you have euphoria, of course, the feeling good. That's what a lot of people are seeking. And then the altered sense of pain. I want to pause on that because the altered sensitivity for pain, that can end up being difficult as well because, God forbid, you're near a stove, right? And as soon as you touch that stove, we naturally do what? Pull back, right? That's what our central nervous system was designed to do. We don't even have to think about it. Now, when we have our central nervous system under a depressant, which we already covered for the indica, right? If you have that in your system, you may have a delayed response where you can end up having more of an issue with responding properly, okay? So, effects on the brain in the short term. We have problems with attention, memory difficulties, reduced attention span, all of which can affect relationships and mood. Listen, sober, I have a reduced attention span. I don't want something else in me that's going to make it more of a reduction, okay? Now, long-term effects. Brain development impacted, reduced attention, impaired memory, reduced learning function, and then impacts the brain's ability to build that was supposed to be deleted. I apologize. That wasn't supposed to be on there. So yeah, reduced learning functions. All right, I'm not gonna read this whole thing, but this is an excerpt from a book by Kevin Sabat. And basically what he's saying is that in the 70s, people weren't trusting the government, and people in that generation were like, listen, you need to legalize weed, okay? It was a divided time with old versus new generations. Same stuff back then happening today, okay? A few years later though, those same people advocating to legalize weed are older, and by 1982, the support for legalization fell. And as a result, parents who wanted marijuana legalized now don't, because they don't want their children using it, okay? Why am I putting this here? Because it shows the development of the brain. When you're younger, you're very passionate about things that you want to fight for, right? I know I was the person that said the drinking age should be 18, and because if I can serve my country and carry a gun, I should be allowed to do it. That was what I used to say in school, and I wrote very passionate papers on it. Then I got older, and I matured. My brain developed. And then I'm like, oh, I see a bigger picture now? I was really foolish back then. So I put this here because, like I said, it demonstrates how our prefrontal cortex is developing and how we are going to shift from being one way to another over time, okay? Of course, marijuana can be linked to psychiatric disorders as well. So a lot of people dealing with mental illness, depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, sometimes you're gonna see the use of marijuana correlate with that. And we have to have them evaluate to figure out which one is causing what. So what am I saying here? if a person's using marijuana, they may not have developed the psychiatric issue, the mental issue until later on in life, or not at all. But because they introduced it into their body, it can end up causing it to come out sooner, okay? Effects on the heart. Bottom line is, marijuana can put stress on your heart, and it can end up causing heart disease and heart attacks. Okay, winding down. So addiction. According to the CDC, about 1 in 10 marijuana users will become addicted. And if they start before age 18, it becomes 1 in 6. Okay, that's a really scary statistic. Now, when it comes down to identifying if a person's addicted, if they wanted to quit and they had trouble quitting, that would be a problem. If they're giving up important activities so that they can go get high, that would be a problem, okay? And if they're using marijuana and it's causing negative problems in their life at home, at school, or at work, okay? So if you see or know someone that fits that criteria, they should be evaluated. All right, so we're gonna get into some pictures right now. These are different forms of inhalation, and I'm gonna be showing you some pictures, and I want you to focus on a few of them, okay? So this is what what I grew up with, right? Joints and blunts. Then you got people using bongs, okay? Pretty standard. But this was the game changer, okay? When we got vape pens created, this was the bridge to addiction because these vape pens can use any drug, okay? This is actually an image that's owned by Tall Cop. He gave me permission to use this image. So, but I just love it because it really does show how this is the bridge into our schools, and if you think about it, that's all we're seeing right now inside the schools, okay? These devices are available in many different forms. A lot of us know about Juul, okay? But these are the concentrates. They come in all these different forms, and then they're mixed with these liquids in order to turn it into a liquid to put into the vape pens, okay? And once you mix the two together, they end up looking like these liquids in the jars.
Oh wait, can you go back to the last slide of the
Mhm.
slide?
This one?
Yes.
Okay. So these are liquid, how do I put this? Okay, here we go. They're propylene glycol. That's just for this one. There's many different forms, but basically they're mixing the propylene glycol with the concentrates here to create the liquid to put into the vape pens. Okay,
Yes.
and these are the concentrates that can become up to 99% THC.
Like I said, I got educated recently, and I've been hearing batter, wax,
Butter.
like there's all
Butter,
these
wax,
different
shadow.
expressions that.
Because if you look at it, they really do look like what they're described. So this is the butter / batter, okay? It has like a creamy consistency. Over here, this is the shatter. If you look at it, like it looks like if you drop it, it's going to shatter.
The shadow look like when you melt sugar in the stove,
Right.
and it becomes that thin
Mhm.
cookie candy. That's what the shadow looks like.
So, here's my next question. What does this look like to you? In this picture.
Quartz.
Quartz. Okay.
I mean, I guess sugar or something. I
Yep.
don't know.
So, this is actually called THCA. It's another form of marijuana, okay? It is legal in places where they have dispensaries, like in California and all that. Sorry, Colorado. The product is a THC crystalline. It's known as diamonds, crystals, or crystalline. But if you see on my last bullet, it says, this drug does not compare to traditional cannabis, but resembles the look of methamphetamine and cocaine. This is where I say behaviors are transferable. They're now creating a substance that looks like cocaine and meth. And it's pure THC, it can be as high as 99%, okay? But those behaviors are transferable because if you make it look normal in one way, you can use it easily in another, okay? This one scares me. It all scares me, but this one scares me, okay? This is another way. They're basically combining the different ways to use marijuana all in one. So we have the blunt that's traditionally rolled, but then we're wrapping the high concentrations around it so that a person can increase their high as they heat it up. Okay? These are regular devices that are known to be used. So if you start seeing things around the house, you may want to pay closer attention to it. What do these look like to you?
Dental,
Dental stuff? Yeah, I can see that. Anything else?
art,
Hmm?
like artwork, you know, if you're dealing with art,
What I use for
arts
my
and crafts.
cuticles.
Yeah.
nail stuff.
It looks like cuticle cutters and stuff too, right? So if you're not paying attention, you could miss this, like sitting in your house or in your room, okay? Over here, what do these containers look like? In the middle, the multicolored ones? Makeup? Maybe makeup.
Sephora.
Contact lenses.
Contact lens holders, right? Maybe a lip balm holder. This is something that marijuana can be stored in, and they handle the stuff stored, the concentrate stored in here with this device on that mat. Okay, so this is why I'm showing you the picture so that you can train your eye on what to look for. Over here, you see oh my gosh, what's the word for that? A nail. Thank you. I highly doubt you're gonna see butane in your child's room.
Where'd you see that was?
It's a nail.
This is a nail. It's
It's a nail.
connected to these devices with like a hose.
They use it with the bongs and with the modified pins, vape modified pins.
That's not a bowl?
Hmm?
That's not a bowl?
No.
So they screw that onto the thing, and the top, you see the opening on the top is where they put the marijuana and they dab it. They heat it up and they smoke it like in a dab.
You can find everything on YouTube, by the way. YouTube University. I'm a graduate. Okay. Let me just say this with clarity. This is not an injectable thing that people are putting into their arms. This is actually a way to extract the concentrates from out of these devices to put it inside the vape pens. Okay? Again, another trend, smoking talkies. So if you run out of paper, don't have the ability to get access to whatever you need, but you happen to have some talkies and some weed on you, just stuff it in there and light it. Highly don't recommend. Alright. There is medical use for marijuana. I have to explain that. But I would say make sure if you're using it that you're storing it safely because they do look like albuterol inhalers for asthmatics like myself. Okay? I deleted that slide too. Don't know why that's here. I apologize. These are some vape pens that are on the market. I just put a picture up here so you can identify. It's not just Juul. You have Martin and Pax. These are pods that can go into the pens and they come pre-filled with marijuana now. This is another vape pen. You can use a pod on one end or you can put the pod here and then have another attachment at the other. Okay, this is Pax-free. This is more on the expensive end, but I just wanted to point out that it can be used for the leaf and for liquids. And you just swap out the parts. Again, Trio, another more expensive one, but this can be used for e-juice pods, oils, and concentrates.
When you say expensive, well,
So for this one, this is like $250. Okay, but when a person's in high school, they don't really need to spend that much because they can go right to the store, they can pay a low price for a vape pen, and get a high amount of pulls in it, which means it's easier for them to get into it.
They just order it online.
Yep, and then ordering online is super easy, especially if no one's checking their account history or anything, so yeah, it's possible. Now, then you also have the concealables. Why do you need something so concealable, especially if you're over age? So clearly you know it's not for people 21 and over, okay? This is a vape pen that looks like car keys. This one's attached to a hoodie, and the part that you would pull around your hoodie is where the vape pen is, and then this is a watch that actually tells time, it actually lights up, and then when you detach it from the wand, you can pull, I'll put your mouth right here for a pull, okay? So they're very crafty and creative with what is out here on the market, okay? So this concludes this portion. I just wanted to quickly let you know what RCADD does. We have Teen Intervene, which is a program for youth who are using substances and having mild to moderate consequences. They can come sit with us. My coworker Margarita does it in Spanish and in English. I just do it in English. Maybe one day I'll learn a language. We also have the interactive experiences like Vape Escape, where we bring a portable vape pen, educational escape room that's centered around vaping, where they're learning about the dangers, but at the same time working together as a team to solve it in time. Then we have Dangers in Disguise, which is a wonderful parent presentation where we bring a mobile bedroom, team bedroom that's included, where you storm through to see what you find in the room that's substance use related. And then we also have our school-based prevention, which is provided by my coworker Margarita. You want to talk about that real quick, or? Okay. School-based prevention, where she goes in and educates our kids and gives them skills, strategies, and techniques, so that they can make better decisions. We also have community-based prevention, recovery support services. So if a person's 18 and out of high school, they'll be able to come to us and be able to connect with a peer, where they can work on their goals and hopefully reduce their use of substances. We do information and referral, and then of course professional trainings as well. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions, want to get connected to services. Margarita and I are available, and we make referrals to each other as well. Is it 20? Oh, my apologies. Margarita's extension 20. All right.
That's Danielle.
Thank you.